Good vibes, thick thighs, inside the minds of psychic mamas. Good vibes, thick thighs, inside the minds of psychic mamas. Vibes only, psychic mamas. Vibes only, your favorite psychic mama. Vibes only, psychic mamas. Vibes only, your favorite psychic mama.
Hi, you guys, and welcome back to Good Vibes, Thick Thighs. I am your host, Gemini 211, aka Bad Bitch Energy, and I am here with a special guest and my co-host, the amazing.
It's Roxy. But today's special guest, we're super excited because I feel like we're going to learn so much today. It's Lynsi Eastburn. She is author and board certified hypnotherapist and has been helping people globally in their pre-pregnancy and pregnancy journeys. So she is the founder and creator of HypnoFertility. So we're definitely going to have her on and answer some questions on what that entails us and stuff. So welcome, Lynsi. We're so excited to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're going to kick it off with 2 truths and 1 lie.
Yep, let's go. I was already like, okay, let's talk about this. I'm so anxious.
But then we end up forgetting about the 2 truths, 1 lie and doing it at the end. So let's just get that one. Yeah.
2 truths and 1 lie. Okay. I'm like, how many things could I think about, right? I like candles every day. Despite the word on your shirt, I don't like the color pink. And I love sticky notes.
I'm going to go with the sticky notes.
I'm going to go with, I don't like the color pink.
You got it. It's pink. I love pink. Oh, my candles gave me away, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, look at it. There's candles.
I see it now.
Candles behind me.
It's so perfectly set, your background. I thought it was like a virtual background you had set up.
I know. People actually thought that when I started, I was working online for a long time, but when I started making this, this was it, full-time office, the other office, no more. I was like, I need something that just looks good, because sometimes you can use a virtual background, but people use all these different programs. So yeah, I'm all about books. And so I had to get my little library. It has a little ladder and everything. I always wanted that. So
that's awesome. That's that ladder reminds me of Beauty and the Beast. When they go to that.
I was going to say that too.
Oh,
takes the ladder.
Clearly, I'm older than you two, because it reminds me of if you ever watched that show Frasier, Niles, his brother Niles, he had this massive, beautiful, gorgeous library, and I want that. So
Frasier,
that was my inspiration. But yeah, okay, Beauty and the Beast.
So you've been board certified for a hypnotherapist over 20 years. What made you go into that career?
So hypnotherapy, yes, I got certified in 1998. And prior to that, I was doing Reiki, and I learned how to do Reiki, how to teach Reiki. And I was doing quite a bit with that. And I thought, oh, hypnosis seems like it would be just a nice adjunct to Reiki. And when I took my, the first class, within the first hour, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I need to do. So hypnosis works a lot with the subconscious mind. So it is one of these, I say what I do is in the healing arts, right? There's all sorts of things that are in what I would consider to be the healing arts, and hypnosis is one of those. One of the great things we do with hypnosis is we're able to help people clear old stuff or blocks from their subconscious minds, whether or not they even know if there's, anything there or what it might be. And to get our conscious mind and subconscious mind on the same page is probably one of the best ways I can put that, because our conscious mind is really only a tiny percent of us, but it thinks it's the boss. And so it thinks it knows what we want and what we're going to do. But if our subconscious mind's not on the same page, we're not going to get what we're trying to do or get consciously. The subconscious mind is bigger, stronger, it's on duty 24/7, where, when we're asleep, our conscious mind's asleep, but our subconscious is not asleep. And so, for example, if somebody wants to have a baby, or they think they do, and they 110% do at the conscious level, if their subconscious mind's not on the same page, that's where the issue can come in.
So does that mean issue in getting pregnant, or issue in just the mindset of being a mom and your body and hormones?
Right. No, it can certainly interfere with actually getting pregnant at all. So maybe when you were a kid, you said something like, I'm never having kids, right? You stomped your foot or something. And then the subconscious, which responds to emotion and it responds to imagery and story, that kind of thing, it can take that literally. And when it takes it literally, it because it's protective, it will say, okay, well, she was upset. She doesn't want any kids. So we're just it can be literally just block fertility. It's not going to take into account, she was a little kid, she was mad at her, little sister or something, like that, right? So it's not logical. So these are how some of these things can get in there. And it may not necessarily be directly related, but somehow it really comes down to how the subconscious mind interprets things. So hypnosis is a method of helping to get that subconscious on the same page, if you will. You can reprogram. I kind of don't like that word that much. It's not like I can do that to somebody, but it is a way that we can get our subconscious minds on our side.
It's kind of like Reiki, like I kind of use the word reprogram with Reiki, but it's not really like we reprogram, but I don't know. So do you incorporate Reiki at all with what you do now?
Well, I always say Reiki is me. It is so much a part of me. So I don't do hands-on sessions, but it's always a part of what I do. And I certainly have distance Reiki involved. And some of the work I'm doing specifically on the spirit baby side of things is most definitely incorporating Reiki.
Oh, nice. I seen in your bio, it says you guide babies to their mothers. That whole sentence, I'm like, what does that mean? How does that work? I want to know.
Yes, I kind of help these babies get here is probably a good way to put it. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with spirit babies?
Elaborate.
Not yet.
The kind of concept of babies that aren't physical, but they're like spirit babies, that energetic, that we have a sense of, that kind of thing.
Oh no, talk. I want to know.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So the fertility, here's all hypnofertility. It's all art and science of hypnosis, and it works with the whole medical realm and helping support the body. And there's, all sorts of things we can do with that. And then there's also the spiritual aspect, or the spirit baby, the energetic aspect, where our children are our children, even when they're not in the physical world. Okay. And so people know that. People tend to know it. Like I just know there's a baby there. I just know that I'm supposed to have 3 or things like that. And when I started doing hypnofertility, back at that time, women were getting diagnoses of, oh, you have less than 1% chance of ever having a baby, or, forget it, you're not a candidate for IVF, or things like that. But they would come to me and say, I know there's a baby there. I just know it. I can't accept this because I know it. And I would be the same. I believe you. I know it too. And we would start working together, and these babies would show up. And sometimes women who'd been told they couldn't have IVF, they just weren't a candidate for IVF, were getting pregnant naturally. And so, they're not supposed to, but here's these babies that are showing up everywhere. And so that is basically the spiritual element of this. We have our intuition, we have gut feelings, we have a knowing, we have, I call it the mystery. There's things we just don't know about in this world. And that's that spiritual aspect. And that's the spirit babies. I mean, we can sense them. I can sense them. And a lot of times women know they're there, but they can't get them here. And no matter what they do, they are having a difficult time. And that's where the hypnosis comes in. And that's where the work that I do comes in. It's like, I know how to get them here. It's one thing to know they're there, and you can go to readers and people will talk, about them or notice that they're there. But then there's the piece where we need to get them here.
Like, do you channel those babies? Like, is it channeled energy to bring them down?
I wouldn't necessarily call it channeling. I guess it depends how you define channeling. For me, it's more, I'm claircognizant. So I typically get downloads in my head of things that I just know that I'm supposed to do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And that's how all of this has really unfolded. I mean, there's the hypnosis applications, right, to hypnofertility, taking someone into hypnosis, doing the kinds of work that you can do there. And then there's also that intuitive piece. I'm an intuitive empath, so I can sense into so much of this and different things with different people.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always, I suffer from anxiety like really bad. and somebody had told me to try hypnotherapy, but I've always been so scared because I'm like, what if I stay in that like
State.
yes, and I don't get out of it?
Like, okay, so my question, speaking like, because you brought it up, Andrea, like, so I hear you speaking about it, Lynsi. It reminds me of like astral traveling, you
yes,
know? And
yes.
so I think I fear kind of the same of Andrea. Like you get lost and you don't know, like, okay, I'm gonna bring up a scary movie, Insidious, where he gets lost in that subconscious and can't find his way back to his body. Like, I I feel what you're trying to say, Andrea. Like the hypnosis kind of like is that fear of an unknown, I guess. So what is it similar to astral traveling or
I would not say that. Oh, if only we could do what they do in the movies. Hypnotherapy is pretty boring. We can't rob banks, or we can't make you rob a bank. We can't make you do anything that's against your will. So no, it's not going to be something like that. Really, it's sometimes people call it an altered state of consciousness, but not even really so much that. It's more like the subconscious mind is vast, and we have a lot of knowledge in there that we're not aware of because we just don't have room in our conscious minds. I kind of think of it as filing cabinets. Like we have one filing cabinet that has all the most important things like our name and our address and our loved ones' names and our job and things like that. And then there's this whole room of filing cabinets that's the subconscious mind that has all sorts of things in it, memories of things that we can actually remember consciously, but also things that, we don't because they were no big deal. It was just every day, got up, went to school, nothing happened, but all of that's still in the subconscious mind. So with the hypnosis, there's a physiological piece to it where it basically helps you to balance the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic being fight or flight. We spend way too much time in fight or flight these days. We're not designed to do that from an evolutionary standpoint, but we do it because evolution hasn't caught up to where we are. At one point, we would go into fight or flight to escape something like a tiger or to fight or to hide. But after that danger was over, then we would switch back over to what is called rest and digest or feed and breed, which most times people don't even know what that is. It cracks me up that everybody knows what fight or flight is. And so many people are like, oh, what is this? This feed and breed, this rest and digest, which is equal. It's just as important, if not almost more. When we spend too much time in fight or flight, it takes the energy away from areas in the body that we don't, need to survive. And that's going to be like the digestive system and the reproductive system. Okay. So that's part of the physiological point. There's a change that happens in the brain that helps to kind of bypass sort of our everyday thinking and allow us to access, that which is so much more to us. And, I call hypnosis the antithesis of stress. Then breaking down the autonomic nervous system into the parasympathetic and sympathetic, it's like, parasympathetic rest and digest is the antidote to fight or flight or the sympathetic nervous system. We should switch back and forth, but just because we have so much stress that's ongoing now, it's like we get our switch stuck. And so there's the anxiety. That's where anxiety comes in. It's just, even if you're not thinking about it, these things can pile up for you in your inner world, right? And like traffic and whatever you might be dealing with in your own daily life. It could be relationships and politics and, whatever it is that upsets you or you find difficult, it will go down into the subconscious, and then that'll anxiety and things like that are like a symptom of what's going on.
I don't drive. I haven't drove a car in 2 years out of nowhere. Like there's no, like I didn't crash. I just woke up one day and was like, nope, not doing this ever again. So I try to push myself, but some days are better than others. So I've tried a lot of different things, and people have told me like, try hypnotherapy, but I just always get scared. Like, what if I get stuck in that, I don't know, that realm or wherever it takes you? So can you kind of just, I don't know, Roxy might kind of be curious too. Can you kind of walk us through like a session? Like what does that look like?
Sure. So you're not leaving, you're not going anywhere that you're going to get stuck. It's your own mind. Okay. If you were in hypnosis and the hypnotist like said, oh, well, I'm out of here and just left you there, you just wake up. you just open your eyes, go about your day kind of thing. You're not asleep, but you would just, if you're laying there comfortably, eventually when nobody's talking to you anymore, you'd open your eyes and, hey, where'd they go?
So kind of like
it's not
meditative state.
It is very much like meditation, and guided imagery and things like that fall under the hypnosis umbrella. So if you've done a guided meditation, which you've probably done in association with Reiki, if nothing else, and, you close your eyes and, take some breaths and follow along, and there's like a beach or whatever it might be that you're doing in there. So that is like a little piece of hypnosis. Okay. And then there's so many more pieces to it, right? So there's the physiological piece, how it affects the autonomic nervous system. Then the subconscious mind responds to, it doesn't speak English or Italian or anything, German, whatever. It speaks metaphor and imagery and emotion. And so when I'm putting a hypnosis session together for somebody, what I'm doing is using words which speak to the conscious mind, like I'm talking to you right now, but to also evoke a response from the subconscious mind through its own language. So, wow. So it's like when we watch TV, there's a story that's there, and you get sucked right in. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm walking through the snowstorm and there's nothing to eat. And what am I, and, you're almost panicking about it. And then it's, oh yeah, that's not me. That's the story. But if it's a good story, it sucks you right in. Right. So same kind of concept is to impact the subconscious mind is going to be with, imagery, with story, with metaphor. If I talk about somebody's uterus in a clinical sense, and most people haven't even seen a uterus, or at least can't remember that since, health class when they were 10 or whatever that is. But it'd be very hard to imagine what that looks like. But yet, if I talk about this warm, peaceful space, a sacred space, that it might look like a cloud or might look like a cotton ball, the subconscious mind knows exactly what I'm talking about, even if the conscious mind doesn't.
Wow.
So that's how I'm going to impact it. I'm going to have way more effect on the subconscious if I talk in a way that, we want to have, oh, look at your uterus. It's this very peaceful, cozy space. And when you have like an embryo transfer, right? This peaceful, cozy space, it's so welcoming, and your little baby just gets tucked right in, as opposed to saying, the, endometrium, blah, 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 kind of thing. The subconscious is like, what?
Yeah.
And so we don't want to talk in medical jargon, right? We want to translate for the subconscious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, because when you're reading something where, like you said, watching TV, if they're using words that you don't understand, you're not going to get lost in the story, as in a sense if they're using like more words that you're familiar with. So that totally makes sense. I'm going to take it back a little bit, because you did mention you started with Reiki. So when you went into Reiki, was that your start of your like spiritual journey?
Well, I was always, I guess, aware of the spiritual aspect of our world. I was always into that type of thing. And I was always interested in astrology and numerology. And, I was a little kid and I'm watching these old talk shows, Merv Griffin and whatnot, and watching Uri Geller, the psychic, and his spoon bending and finding out about the Bermuda Triangle and reflexology. And I could remember myself, I'm just a little kid and I'm explaining, which I read this on the back of the TV guide. They had, back in the day, they had these print magazines called TV Guide, and you looked in there, right?
Oh yeah.
On the back of
those.
Yeah, it's really sad that I have to even talk about that anymore.
The writing was like this tiny,
right? Right. Yeah. See, now, at once upon a time, you could say that, and people had an instant knowing of what it looked like, and now, not necessarily. So we need, more words. But the back of the TV guide had 2 feet, and it had all of the points for acupuncture and acupressure, and there was a little story about it, and I read all that, and I was telling people, and so your body is represented on your feet, and your organs are there, and your the top of your big toe, that's your head, and so on. And people like, who is this person? Like, what? She's a little child. So I started there. I was always interested. When I was 14, I had knee surgery, and there I am. And I was in Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, big, huge hospital, and with my numerology book.
Wow.
And I'm doing numerology charts for all the nurses, and nurses are coming from all over the hospital to get their charts done by me. And I'm just using a book. Like I'm just, playing around with it, doing it, and they loved it. So yeah, that sort of led to it. And I was in a spiritual group doing meditation, aura type stuff, energy. And I got moved. The universe saw fit to pick me up out of the Toronto area and drop me into Atlanta, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, actually. And so I had to find a new group because you couldn't basically take your group with you. You couldn't attend by Zoom and stuff like that. This is 1993. I ended up with this group, and this woman taught crystal enhancement. That was kind of her primary thing, which I wasn't really looking for, but it just happened to be one of the modalities. And she ended up learning Reiki after I got there. And she learned Reiki, and then she told me about it. And I was like, oh, I have to have Reiki. And so that's how I ended up becoming a Reiki master teacher, and kind of went right into that at that point.
So interesting how it all came together for you and stuff. Like, this is what you were meant to do.
It is. I was totally, I'm the one that's going to be on Facebook posting the memes about being the black sheep. Because they're like, who is this person? What is she talking about? In this little everyday, ordinary, working class family, go to work, go to school, cut the grass on the weekend kind of thing. And there's Lynsi over here talking about, and my people who are not from this planet and need to come and get me because I do not belong here, right?
I feel like, a lot of spiritual people, we believe that, or we went through like a phase of like, we don't belong here. Like the aliens need to just come and take us away, whatever. I always like somebody out there needs to come find me, but I totally understand being picked up and take me back to where I belong.
Yeah, it's so true. And I guess you're just kind of attracted to things that are different. The other kids I can never get that whole idea of people on top of a playground type of thing, yelling, I'm the king of the castle, you're the dirty rascal. And I'm like, I'm in my head, I'm going, there are books to read. There are, there is philosophy to consider, I was just like, so not into any of that type of stuff as a kid. And not only not into it, I couldn't even understand it. And my dad, I talk about this in one of my books, but I was sitting out at the front of our house. We had this like 3 steps that led up, and then we had more steps, but this little 3 big steps. I'm sitting there with my, thinker position, right? My fist under my chin kind of thing. And he's watching me. I'm only 3 or 4, right? And finally he comes out and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm waiting for my people."
Oh my
He goes, "That's not people." I said, "I'm waiting for my people. They're going to come and get me. I don't belong here." And he laughed, and that just, infuriated me, right? It was like so incensed. How can you laugh? I don't belong here. And yeah, he just shook his head and went back in, and I continued to sit there, and they never came. I had to stick it out and for that whole childhood and be like a regular person.
Which is hard, especially at your
right?
Yeah, because I feel like you started at a young age, so not having that person to say, you're really not going to get rescued. You're really not going to nobody's going to come from outer space and take you. Like, I feel like just at that young age, we just have to learn through trial and error. And at least you found that pack of people, that could understand you, where, because I was kind of that same person where as a kid, you don't really relate to anybody. So you don't have anybody to guide you and say, hey, is this real? Is this not real? Hey, how do I react to this? Hey, is this thought? Like, what do you do with this thought? What do you do with this, ideas, whatever that comes your way? So it's kind of cool that you found like your little, clique of people who you could talk to and express, and they had something back to say to you, opposed to the average person that I feel like gets stuck in their spiritual journey of who to talk to, where to go for help,
Right. Well, it didn't hurt that I have like this inner rebel and this really strong or stubborn sometimes personality. So you were not going to shut me down about that. And that happens a lot of times to spiritual people, is they end up shutting down, or people shut them down, because it's different. They just don't know what to do with,
Right.
somebody like us. Right. And, but me, I was just so stubborn, and my life could have been so much easier if I were less stubborn, but I just would not, I was a vegetarian child.
Wow.
And I was forced to eat meat, and I just hated it. I say, if you took me back to any day of my life as a child, I was sitting at the table after dinner saying, I don't want to eat it. And you're not getting up to eat your meat.
That's
I
crazy.
couldn't do that. I know. I was a pescatarian for 3 years. So I'm slowly now getting into meat, but like I could eat steak, but I can't eat chicken yet. I'm not there yet. But I can't eat hamburger meat. No, I can only eat steak. Like hamburgers, I can't do hamburgers. Like just the meat, the texture. I don't know. I'm not.
There's definitely a texture thing that I just didn't like it, didn't want to eat it. And I got in so much trouble all the time because I didn't want to eat it, and I would swallow it whole, or I would. I always say 1978 was the best year we got a dog, and we got this dog.
Feed him the scraps that you didn't want.
I'll just find some way. Oh, yawning, and then hand down here, and then under my chair all the time. But that dog, 1978, boy, that was the year.
That's funny.
But being a vegetarian in sort of just, ordinary society, if you will, it's not like I lived in like Boulder, Colorado or LA or something where people tend to be more progressive. I'm in this working class area, and it's like you need to eat, your meat, and you're a problem if you don't. And but I just didn't, and I was just so different. And the kids make fun of me like crazy because, they ate stuff like, I don't know, hot dog, wieners kind of thing. I wouldn't eat that.
Yeah,
I would not. They have a hot dog day at school, and then I wouldn't eat a hot dog. And then the kids are like, and I'm like, nope, not doing it. I don't care how much you make fun of me. I'm not doing it.
I still get made fun of by the way I eat because everybody eats like I don't eat fish anymore either. So they're like, what do you eat? I'm like, I'll put bread with ketchup just to make you happy, but I will not eat a hot dog either. I don't know.
Crazy. Here I am eating everything.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that that was like your life path that you took on, and you kept that like rebel mentality and like not conforming to what's like the societal norms at that time. Because I feel like back then, when there wasn't any access to like, let's say TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, where you could easily connect to people that like have similar interests and lifestyles as you do, it must have been tough for you growing up and standing your ground like, no, this is who I am. You can't change me.
Yeah. And it was just part of me. I don't know if you've heard of indigo children. So I come to find out I am an indigo.
Oh, wow.
And indigos came through to, break down paradigms, right? They came in and they had a rough time of it because they had to be strong because they had to fight and they had to get these things smashed, right? And I didn't know that for years and years and years, but it did when I read about it many years later. I was like, oh, wow, okay. That's just another component of the whole spirit baby thing, right? The indigo spirits, and they came through, and their purpose is to, break down the paradigm, like get things that aren't working, get rid of them, and like really, really structured, controlled religion, things like that are not helping anyone. And old things worked a certain way at a certain time, and now they don't. And right now, a big thing is the patriarchy that is being crashed. And I don't mean that in a negative way about men or males or anything like that, but it's, we all have energy that is masculine and feminine within each of us. And then there's, it's archetypal, right? We associate certain qualities with masculine or feminine energy. And so, aggression is a masculine quality. When it gets out of balance, then you have things like war. You have, power mongering, you have volatility, you have greed, you have all of these things that are that masculine energy out of whack. And then feminine, we tend to think of more as nurturing, protective. But if the female or feminine energy gets out of whack, then you get a lot of drama. You get gossip, you get things that are not the good qualities of women, if you think about it that way, but it's on an energetic level. So we're trying to balance out now from this lopsided, patriarchal society and get it more into the middle, get it more balanced.
The way you explain things, it just reminds me of like Reiki again. Like it goes out of balance and we're trying to rebalance it. When you do Reiki, all your chakras and all that, too much of something turns to something negative and stuff. Like it's crazy how it all interconnects in a way.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it makes sense from Reiki, you went to like hypnotherapy. And then from doing hypnotherapy, you went to hypnofertility. Like, how was that change or shift?
Yeah, and you're right. Like all of this stuff, you just hear that there's threads, and sometimes there's just so much more than threads that you can see, how much these are similar. So hypnotherapy, kind of working with generalized things. Some people specialize. I specialize in fertility now, but at that time, I was in basically a general practice, and I did work with hypnobirthing. Hypnofertility didn't exist. So people weren't using hypnosis to help with fertility. It just hadn't been done. Everyone knew, hypnosis for weight loss and smoking, and hypnosis for childbirth. They were doing a lot of it in the 1940s. It kind of goes in and out of almost like fashion, weirdly. The birth.
That's crazy. How would that work? Like hypnobirth? Like someone would talk them through the birth? Or
well, it's really like a training of the mind. So we switch back and forth into our subconscious all the time. So you've probably heard of highway hypnosis, where you're driving along and all of a sudden you get somewhere, you don't know how you got there.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yes.
Suddenly you're at work in the morning and you're like, oh, I don't remember leaving the house. And it's where we do things that are habit for us, right? We know how to have babies. It's inherent in women. And then we have gotten ourselves into all sorts of, messes because we started thinking about it and overthinking it. And then, of course, the medical aspect of it, tried to make it into a thing, right? In terms of this is how birth happens. This is what has to happen. These are the medicines we have to have, which we don't. We know how to give birth if we're alone in the forest somewhere, which I wouldn't want to have happen, but we could. We would not absolutely need to have some type of instrument or some type of medicine in order to do that. So the hypnosis kind of helps people get back into what they know how to do. Women in comas give birth, so they're not taking any direction. Their bodies will do it. Their uterus will do it. The baby and the body are in harmony with each other. It's nature. Some of the hypnosis, so you can do things like anesthesia with hypnosis. So you can cause, just like what you would have Novocaine or something like that for your teeth to have dental work, and you can do that with hypnosis. Wow. So for people that don't like needles, sometimes we will do they call it hypnodontics, and we do things for, getting teeth pulled. We can keep blood from where sometimes a wound can gush blood, but we can help to stop that. Like wow. We stop nosebleeds with hypnosis, and, we can numb, so a person you could take a knife and cut their hand or something like that, and they wouldn't feel it. They could see it, but they still wouldn't feel it, which is just so amazing. I've been in on surgeries where I've been the anesthesia.
Oh, wow.
Nothing major, where organs were taken in or out or back in, nothing like that. But certainly with birth, but also with, procedures like having, a melanoma removed from the skin or I had a woman who she had a lot of trauma, a lot of sexual abuse trauma, and they needed to do cryotherapy on her. So to freeze the cells in the uterus or cervix, the bad pap smear.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they use that.
What is it called, for HPV?
Yes, for HPV, exactly. And so, but she could not have any type of invasion, I guess you could say. She couldn't do anything like that because of all the trauma. And so I did some hypnosis with her, and they did the procedure and we're done with it. And she didn't even know they started.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So she was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm like, oh, it's okay. They're done. And same with, I had a client actually went in with her for blood work, and they needed some, I don't know, ridiculous number of bottles of blood. They needed 12 or 15 or something. And she'd gone in and they just basically, she got sick. They weren't getting any blood out of her. She eventually fainted, had to lay down. No, she did everything she was supposed to do. She was hydrated and all of that, but she just had an issue with needles and the stress. And so I went in, same thing. And I can teach this to people to do in self-hypnosis. It's easy enough. Sometimes I like to go in just to be there It's almost fun, like just to, hey, let's do this. Yeah, let me be there. I want to be there. And same thing with her. It's like, she's like, okay, I'm ready. And they're just putting like the last of 12 vials into, the little tray, and they're done.
Wow.
So going back to the hypnobirth, because me and the fiance, after we get married, we are in talks of having another baby. How would you teach someone to like that self hypnosis to go through it?
Things. So conditioning is one thing, right? You know how to have a baby, but you have been, and not just you personally, all of us, we've been indoctrinated with all this fear about birth. It's painful, it's scary, it's horrible, it's dangerous, and all of these things. Now, can things go wrong? Absolutely. Do they most of the time? No. I'm not anti-hospital, but I'm anti-interference if it's not necessary. You can definitely have a comfortable birth. Absolutely. Fear causes tension, causes pain. If somebody's afraid, or maybe even stuck in sort of a control drama type of thing where they want to control everything and you can't in those situations, if there's fear, then that's going to cause tension, and that causes pain. If your uterine muscles are designed to work to bring this baby out, but if you go into fight or flight, then all of that energy is drawn away from the uterus, right? From the areas that are not deemed necessary for survival. And so then it's the body's working against itself. So then there's pain from that. You can open to have that baby, they're receiving the baby into this world. I don't even like the word deliver, but if you fight it, you hear about people having 3 hours of pushing or purple pushing or things like that, because if it hurts, people will definitely sort of respond against it. A lot of times we'll fight against it. And I'll tell you, the first one with my son, the first time it was just a disaster birth thing, and that was the hospital's fault. But the second time, I didn't have any medication, and then I hadn't felt, the actual birthing part with my first son. And I said to the nurse, well, so how am I going to know? She says, oh, you'll know. The contractions didn't bother me at all. So I'm like, well, how will I know when it's time? She goes, oh, you'll know. And so then, yes, I did know. I felt that there was the head there, and you can feel it. It's like, okay, you almost lose your breath. Okay, yeah, I know what they mean. So then when it's time to push, all of a sudden I can feel it. It hurt. It definitely did. I'm like, ow, okay, I'm not doing this. I'm going home. And I heard this. This was, I had done Reiki by this time. I hadn't done any hypnosis or formal hypnobirthing. And I just heard a voice in my head saying, just open, go with it. Go with it, it'll be fine. And he was out in just a couple of pushes. Like, they couldn't believe it. It was almost as though he fell out. If you stub your toe, it hurts, right? But it stops, right? And it's the same with, same with birth. Even if there's discomfort, it's not constant. And when it is, it's typically because there's other things playing into it. And so there's different ways to work with. First off is conditioning you to go into a nice relaxed state easily, quickly. You can do that. And I'm sure, are quite familiar with that from Reiki. Okay. It's like that state that you go into when you're having a Reiki treatment, or even when you're giving one, right? It's, I don't like to call it an altered state, but it's just a more energetic, maybe you could call it, state. And you're able to tune into your body more, and you're able to allow, your body to do what it needs to do. And so it takes some practice. I have people do a recording of hypnosis that they listen to repeatedly before the birth so that they get conditioned to it. And then it's like the first, you hear it for 1 second, and then you're like, okay, I'm in that space. You're not asleep, and you're not unaware. You can still talk, you can make decisions, all of that. But at the same time, you can also be in this state of, almost you could call it flow, I guess, or just feel better, feel more peaceful, and can maintain that, if that makes sense.
I go back to my labors, and I'm like, dude, I don't think I ever was relaxed or calm or in a calming state of mind. It was fight or flight, like just, okay, hurry up, go, 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 go. Yeah. So I'm trying, I think back, like it's almost like, what is that? Lamaze, right? Is that what it's called? Lamaze?
Like the breathing classes that you take?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, like where they teach you to breathe, to relax. I think I was just so young to even understand the concept of breathe, relax, that I'm like, no, I can't do this. Like, just get it out.
Yeah. and just programmed with that fear. And, all the movies, they never,
Yes.
nobody's ever saying, oh, I'm having a baby. Everybody's screaming and calling their husband names, or, it's always an emergency, right? Somebody's water breaks and everybody's panicking, right? And I'll be sitting there with my husband, and that'll happen. I'll be like, they have plenty of time. It's not like the baby's going to fall out, right? But that's the way they portray it. Right. And so that's what we're conditioned. That's a hypnosis in and of itself. Beliefs that we have, that we might not even know that we have, that they're a belief because we've been conditioned to them. And that's one of them. Then you have people telling you how bad childbirth will be, or their stories about it. And so with the hypnosis, there's methods we can use to basically keep other people's negativity off you. And to actually use it, I'll say, the more, negative anyone is, the more it strengthens your resolve to be tuned in with your body and your baby, to have your baby in the most natural way possible. I'm not all about natural birth. It doesn't have to be natural. It doesn't have to not have any medication, but there is a spiritual component to it. And it is a real connection with body and baby. So sometimes, if people want certain things, I don't try to talk them out of it. But there isn't a need all the time for some things. And I guess that's probably to have that awareness, to get that awareness out there.
That's super interesting. I mean, I've had 2 boys already, and both of those were completely different. The first one, I remember that they had to take me into a C-section because I didn't dilate past the full, for him to be, but the water had broke already. Right. So it was getting into that stage where I could get infected and stuff like that. That's why the cesarean had to happen. But I remember the nurse coming in and saying are you feeling any pain? And I wasn't feeling anything at the time. And they're like, because you're having contractions. And I think once she put that in my head, that's when I was like, oh, am I supposed to feel pain? I don't feel anything.
True. It is so very true. And we could have certainly used hypnosis to help with that dilation. And one of the ways that we would do that would be to have you imagine an opening rose or an opening flower, blossoming flower. So rather than have you, all right, focus in there and let's get it stretched open. No, it's okay. And just focus on a lovely flower, a beautiful rose, and it's blossoming and it looks so gorgeous. And amazingly, as you're doing that, so it is that'll happen. And that's actually what I did without even knowing I was doing it when I first started to, that first, I hate the word push too. There's a lot of words I don't like. But when I first felt that, and it was like, let go with it, open up. And I saw in my mind a blossoming rose. And then here down the line, when I was trained in hypnosis, I found it was one of the images that was used a lot with birth. Yeah.
Wow. That's exciting.
And yeah, beautiful.
When you put it recover, so much of it there is a lot that has to do with what we believe or what people project onto us or what we're told. Braxton Hicks, a lot of times people are like, yeah, I thought I was having Braxton Hicks, and they told me they weren't Braxton Hicks, and then they hurt so bad because then they were real. And it's like, what? They're the same, but you thought they were Braxton Hicks, but then they hurt when they were real 5 seconds later. When you found out that they were, real. So real goes in air quotes. It's just so many words that I use have to be in air quotes.
I guess it just goes to say how powerful the mind could really be. We've talked about it in past episodes, the whole self-affirmations and self-acceptance and self-love and how powerful those words to your own self could be. So I could see how hypnotherapy with just saying and imagery and stuff like that, how powerful it could take on your body. I think I don't know where I saw it, somewhere where it was if you're asleep and the car gets into a crash, you won't be as injured as someone who tenses up because they're awake. And now that you're explaining how the mind works with the body and the pain and stuff, I guess it makes sense, because when they're asleep, they're not they're not seeing the crash happen to the oh my God, it's gonna hurt,
Oh no, exactly. That's why so many drunk drivers don't get severe injuries, because they're just not they're so kind of relaxed would be one word, they're just not just really not aware. They're just they're not going to react or respond a lot of times, especially depending on how much they've had. And yeah, when people are asleep, if they don't know, it doesn't mean you couldn't get killed sleeping in a car in an accident. But yeah, typically that will happen because you don't brace yourself. And so with the birthing, it's the same thing. You're bracing for it or bracing against it, or people think that they're going to, like, they're so concerned about everything else that's going on. And there's also some drama that goes with that people, that's a whole other thing, but people will get into, if they have like an inner victim, or they have something where they really want attention, that can also be something that causes pain for people or causes issues. And it's not like they would know that. It's just happening at a subconscious level. So sometimes we're clearing that. I don't know if you're familiar with the term secondary gain, but it's when you want something consciously, but you're getting a bigger benefit subconsciously, even though it's something you don't want, right? So, and it can be all sorts of, different things. And sometimes it's, an illness. Sometimes it's migraines. Let's say migraines, for example. I don't want migraines. I hate having migraines. But when I get a migraine, I finally get to stop. I get to lie down. Somebody takes care of the kids, whatever the case is. So I've got a secondary benefit. I need my migraine, right?
I'm like, no.
First too, right?
I hate migraines. I hate migraines. So I'm like, I get migraines at least once a month, maybe 3-4 days. No.
But then think about what she was. Yeah, I was just gonna say, think about what Lynsi was saying. You're always on the go, 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 go with like going live, doing readings, doing mediumship, doing this, doing that. That when you get the migraines, you oftentimes like, sorry guys, I got to push your appointments to another day, and your body's recouping. So I could totally see what Lynsi was saying with that.
Hey, I get migraines and I don't like them, and my husband, he's a hypnotist too, and he actually does a lot with migraines, and he could get rid of them. And I'm like, nope. I'm just going to keep them every so often because that helps me to just go, okay, you need to shut down. And it's like a lot of times we're so busy on the go, do. And then we don't take the time for ourselves. So it's kind of my joke. Now, believe me, when they're really brutal, I'm not thrilled about that. But I kind of joke with him about it. Like, I need my migraines,
No, I'm brutal. I'm like to the point now where I've been using like this nurse that comes in and does like a liquid flush. I don't know if you've heard of that. So it's just like like an IV with a bunch of, I don't even know what's in it. She comes to the house, hooks it up, and then I'm like, okay, I'm alive again. But my migraines are so depleting. Like I fall off the radar for days. Can't even get out of bed.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying hypnosis is some magic cure for migraines or that there's nothing else going on with migraines, but it's just an example that sometimes the migraine really is somebody doesn't want them, but they don't respond to treatment because there is a secondary benefit, which typically is going to be they get to not go to work, or they get to rest for a little while, or, whatever that kind of thing is. But yeah, and definitely I don't ever want anyone to think that I would dismiss anything medical or that, any of that kind of thing. And of course, they're hormonal. They can be hormonal as well, but
minor hormonal.
Could be all sorts of different things. But sometimes, even though there's a medical reason, they may not necessarily need to be there.
Okay, so now when I have a migraine in a couple of weeks, then I'm going to be like, okay, I just need to relax. And I don't have time. I'm always like, migraine, you have to leave. I don't have time for you right now. Like, I don't have this time. You're taking my time away.
Instead, thank your migraine. Hello, migraine, here you are. So what's going on? What do I need to know? And thank you for being here, but I would really appreciate it now. If you might have to negotiate with your migraine. Okay, migraine, I promise that I will stay here for 30 minutes and rest, or I will go soak in the bath, or I will do something that I want to do, whatever that is. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, because when you fight it, what resists persists, right?
Yes. I'm going to try that now.
Yeah.
I tried good tip. Every possible thing. And I'm so like I don't like medicine. I just, because I don't want to be codependent, like I don't want to be, I get lately it's been this, they gave me a new medication, but I'm like, what if it like works and then my insurance stops and then I can't get it, or what, and like I get all these like no, you just have to get better on your own. Like you can't be codependent. It might be taken from you, and then what?
Well,
I
that's
just
not
think there's
anxiety too, right? That's anxiety. And that is anxiety, then it causes anxiety, then it feeds the anxiety, then the circle goes, round and round and round. But yeah. And with hypnosis, so there's some things that we can do that are either a self-hypnosis or affirmations type of thing, or guided, like listening to something that's guided. And then there's techniques for, like, I call them the big guns. That's probably not a good term to use these days, but the power pack part of it, where we can bypass the critical faculty, where sometimes you can't because it's your own mind. So sometimes things like that's where the hypnotherapy comes in. It's like somebody can talk themselves into, like, I'm fertile and, I have lots of healthy eggs or whatever it might be. But if they don't believe it, or if they're not using, the emphasis that they really need, then it doesn't help them. And so same with, anything that somebody has like a block with, it doesn't really matter how much they try to go against it, because it's that against, that's the resistance rather than having it released. And so when people have gone through trauma, it doesn't take away the trauma, but it can help with the charge that is around the trauma, where somebody is getting triggered every 5 seconds kind of thing, and it's to the point where it's just interrupting their lives. It's almost impossible for them to go on or to do things or to function because something like that's happening. So that's where you want the hypnotherapy aspect, where someone can sort of help you, but hold the space, because our minds, if we're trying to do hypnosis and be conscious about it, then we're pulling the conscious mind in, and then we're pulling ourselves in and out of the state we want to be in because we're engaging our conscious mind. So when you're doing the hypnosis aspect with a hypnotist, then they're handling that part, and you're still awake. You're not asleep when you're hypnotized. Now you might be kind of off. You might kind of drift off. You might feel like you fell asleep, and it's okay if you do, but you absolutely don't have to. You can totally listen and hear the whole thing. You can totally be moving around. It's again, it's kind of the ideas of hypnosis we get from the movies that, totally not.
Yeah. Or they're like, ding, follow and go to sleep.
Right. Right. Yeah. They like to make it look like we have this power over people. But, honestly, if we did, there would be mad hypnotists in control of the world. I mean, it's not like everyone would just sit around and not take over the world if they could. You know what I mean? And so it's like, the rest of us hypnotists would not be in business, working with clients, because we would have, hypnotized some king to give us all his gold, and we'd be sitting someplace, counting our gold.
Hypnotize someone to do the dirty work, and then you just you bask in the ambience afterwards.
Right. See, that's the problem, because people won't do something that they don't want to do. You can't make them do anything, with hypnosis. If they're okay with it, then they will. But even when you see like a stage show and somebody, they say to them, well, everybody's always afraid of quacking like a duck, but you're not going to quack like a duck unless it just doesn't matter to you. Like it just, now that therapeutically absolutely unnecessary, but when people are doing, in a stage show, it's fun. And if they don't want to quack like a duck, they still might bark like a dog, because for whatever reason, they're okay with that, and so it's not, the subconscious is not logical as far as that goes. You know what I mean? But you still have to be, if can't hypnotize anybody against their will, can't make anybody be hypnotized, can't make them do anything in hypnosis. That's what I think I end up having to talk about a lot with people that don't know much about it, or have only heard little bits, or there's fear. So we have to alleviate fear, but there's nothing to be afraid of, because you're totally in control. Just like Reiki, you can have a Reiki treatment and you can kind of zone out, but you're also there,
right.
And you can snap to, any second if you needed to get up or whatever the case is.
It's that free will we've mentioned. Everybody has a free will.
Absolutely. If somebody wants to lose weight, for example, with hypnosis, I mean, they do need to want to do it. You can't just, take somebody that, doesn't want to do it and, tell them that they have to. But if they want to, then it's going to be a matter of, well, what are you willing to do? Because if you want to, but you're not willing to give up chocolate, you won't. Not to say you won't lose weight in any other way, but if you do have control of this. Now, if you want to get rid of the chocolate and you're like, I absolutely do not want to eat chocolate. Yeah, we can do that. But not because we think you should get rid of chocolate, only because that's your choice.
Well, this is so much fun. I feel like this took us on a whole journey of, I don't even know what I want to call it, but like I feel like our minds went off into thought and learning, and I don't know. Don't you feel the same way, Roxy? Like it was kind of like
yeah, it's very interesting. Now, regarding your services, because you did create the HypnoFertility, you're the founder and creator of that, and we'll put the website of that in our show notes. Do you just strictly just do now the HypnoFertility and like hypnosis for like birthing and stuff like that? Or do you still accept like for people that want hypnosis for other stuff?
Yeah, I've been exclusively fertility and pregnancy type stuff for a long, long time. I just don't have the time to do other things at the moment. And I just haven't. I like to do them. This is pretty much, it's all of me. I only do the birthing if it's with my clients, like going all the way through from hypnofertility, pregnancy, birth. I don't take individual birthing clients, but I do have someone at my office that does that. And then my husband, he does all the general hypnosis stuff and works with sports and things like that. So we still have it covered. It's just not necessarily with me. Yeah. So, I mean, there's like the spirit baby-ish stuff, the hypnofertility, supporting the medical treatments, helping people get pregnant naturally. I have some workshops. I'm actually going to have a free 2-hour hypnofertility workshop. I'm not quite sure when it's going to be, in about 3 weeks or so.
Okay, nice.
Haley and I are just trying to nail down the date. But yeah, even if people aren't wanting to get pregnant per se right away, or at all, it's still a neat place to just hear about it. And because I have to explain hypnosis and talk about all of that in order to talk about hypnofertility, right? Because ultimately there's that, it's a foundation.
I don't know, is there like Instagram, all that as well?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook. I think it's just Lynsi.Eastburn for Instagram and HypnoFertility for Facebook.
Well, this was fun. Is there anything you want to add, Roxy?
No, do you have anything else you want to mention to our listeners, Lynsi?
No, I mean, I could mention so many things. We could be on here for hours. I thought we got to talk about some really great stuff, and it was just kind of fun to follow the lead, wherever it went. So, thanks so much for having me on. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
thank you. We appreciate you.
All just different. We went all over, I feel like, but obviously there's more that we could touch, but this was great. Well, we'll put all the information. If you guys have any questions, you could email us. Check out Lynsi on Facebook, Instagram. If you want to book an appointment, Roxy will put all her information in our show notes. And we're sending tons of love and tons of light. And we are out this BITCH.
Bye.
Vibes, stick that inside the minds of psychic mamas. Good vibes, stick that inside the minds of psychic mamas. Vibes only, psychic mamas. Vibes only, your favorite psychic mamas. Vibes only, psychic mamas. Vibes only, your favorite psychic mamas.